So I think data by itself is a very mundane, it's information that is available to everyone, but to get them to engage is a very exciting process where you know that it's just unidimensional numbers and words, and the act of making it accessible to them through a product or an experience is more gratifying than say everything else. So I always enjoy the process of conversion of the mundane to something exciting. Because I was in architecture, I was always working with multiple surfaces. So there were walls to play with, floor, furniture, objects. So when in graphic design, when it sort of becomes just digital or print, it feels a little restrictive for me because I don't have enough surfaces to play with, which is where my product like inkling comes from, where I want to have a product instead of print or digital. Because if it's a product, you have the option to borrow from sounds, textures, and then you have the option of having multiple surfaces to play with. You have options of like engagements where you can put something that opens up, folds out, like something that you lift and then see something else. The option to have like revelation or engagement and play is a lot more when it comes to a product. And as an architect who's always looking to use all of my surfaces to my advantage to create spaces, I think that sort of transcended into my graphic design work as well, where I always need more than one surface to work with, which is why products feel like the natural response.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the podcast. And today we have Sunanda, who is a graphic designer from SCAD, and she's also just finished her MFA. Sunanda, introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, my name is Sunanda, and I'm originally from Chennai in India. I have a background in architecture, but 2 years ago I moved to the US to get my Master of Fine Arts in Graphic Design and Visual Experience at the Savannah College of Art and Design in the Savannah campus. I graduated a month ago, so now I am an architect, visual designer, open to work, and looking for the next opportunity.
So tell us a little about the project that you're going to talk about.
So today we're going to be talking about a project called Data Claus. I think it's important to me as a project during my master's program that really helped define my areas of interest in visual experience and actually narrow down what I would like to do going forward, or the kind of work that I could possibly be interested in within graphic design itself. It's a data visualization piece, but I was also able to interpret it as a product design exercise where the data lives in a product in contrast to visualizations on print. So yeah, like I was saying, Data Claus was a project as part of a data visualization class in SCAD. It was facilitated by Professor Rhonda Arnson, and it was for GDVX 742, that's the class's name. And it was notorious to be one of those classes that everybody struggled with. And like literally every student would have to work doubly hard on the project. So they would always save it for a lighter quarter. So that's what we had heard about it going in. So that's the mentality that I went with as well, where I knew that this was going to be a very intense class. As a way of helping myself, because I knew it was an intense class, when I had the opportunity to pick a topic, I wanted to pick something that I really, really enjoy, so that even if the class is intense, I'm exploring a topic that I'm pretty attached to. So I picked Christmas and Christmas movies because like it's just something that I do when I'm stressed, or like I watch Christmas movies a lot, and I generally like the emotions associated with the holidays and all of that. So even though as a child, I don't think I ever did anything during the holidays. It was not like part of the family or whatever, but I think as something that I just watched, I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to use the fact that I enjoyed the topic to help me in a class that I was probably going to struggle with. But I didn't. That's what I will come to at the end of the project. So we had to pick data sets to visualize through the course of the quarter. So I picked 3 sets of data about the holidays and related themes. The first one being people's attitudes about the holidays and how many of them thought what out of 1,000 people that was surveyed by Statista. And then I got some data from Zippia and Wedding Pro about how many people made proposals during the holiday season, and how many of them were accepted, and how many people were conceiving babies during the holiday season. So just as an additional topic about society and the holidays. And the third one was 25 of the most popular Christmas movies, and how many romantic relationships they showed, and how many of these couples in love were taking the pressure of doing romance and doing holidays right. So these were the three data sets that I got. And from the outset, it does look like they're very random. But I think the randomness of them contributed to presenting a holistic picture about the holiday season itself, which I will get to. So I think for effect, it's important to understand that this data visualization project needed us to divulge into the same data with two different perspectives. One, representing it just as is, and the second, interpreting it in a reverse manner, where we had to present one point of view and then present another point of view about the same data, and visualize it in a way that our perceptions change, right? So I, for effect, called it Santa's interpretation and the Grinch's interpretation of Christmas. So I think once I had decided that at one POV was going to be of Santa and one was going to be from Grinch, I sort of personified myself, right? When I would think about the data, I would think of them like as I would almost method act and be Santa and Grinch when I'm thinking about the data. And the next step, I think this was my most important step in this project, was to draw random Christmas related scenes and visuals, and then see where all data can live. Like this was all, the red ones on the left are all the negative interpretations, where I said, like for the negative experience, the positive experience, where I was showing all kinds of rosy things about Christmas, mittens and gloves and mistletoes and snow angels and all of that, and seeing where you can position data. And for the negative, I was doing like drunk on cider, like problems with like the number of clothes you needed to like prepare for, all the work you were leaving behind at office when you were celebrating Christmas, all the shopping lists you had to make, all the money that you were spending. So I was thinking of Christmas from two different ways and drawing visuals that could help me. Then I landed wrapping paper for Santa's interpretation, because giving gifts is an act of love. So the act of making wrapping paper is as warm as it could get, because I was trying to be warm and fuzzy here. So I made different components to visualize different aspects of my data. So there was a tube where the wrapping paper was stored, the package, which carried the data of the people's attitudes towards Christmas, where a bar graph on the package showed their different attitudes to Christmas on it, and then it held the wrapping paper inside. Then I made a set of stickers with like which said shipped on, like it was a shipping label of sorts, but then it visualized the data about the number of engagements and conception of babies. So if it was shipped on a day that the conception of babies was really high, it would have a stork being the person who delivers the gift to you. And then if it was on an engagement, it would be Cupid. And on every other day, it would be the elf. So the idea was to be as cheesy as possible about the season, if you're not already getting the message from how intentionally warm everything has been made. And the wrapping paper carried the data about the Christmas movies, romances. So it showed one location point on a map of Paris, the city of love, where each location point was a couple in a Christmas movie. And every time the heart was shaded green or red, it showed them investing in love and Christmas. So for the other Grinch interpretation, I had to pick something that was so negative that it made people feel almost suffocated by the holiday season. So I packaged candy into stress medication. As like, both of these were just objects that you could buy people for Christmas, I guess. You would buy it for someone who loves Christmas, would probably get the wrapping paper, and someone who doesn't appreciate it too much, probably the stress medication. So the components were such that there was a prescription which carried the data about people's attitudes. But if you notice, the last time I spoke positive words like sharing and celebration and stuff, but here it's saying your love levels are inadequate, your stress levels are abnormal, because you're not making enough, like you're not meeting the expected level of love, you're exceeding your level of stress by a lot. So this just was a play on language. And then the dosage chart told people, take one every holiday season because you need it, but take two on a day you probably conceive a baby, and take two on a day you're accepting a proposal, because engagements and like conception of babies are irreparable damages made in the name of love. So proposal allergy, pregnancy anxiety, and holiday syndrome were all reasons why you would take the stress medication. And then there was a pill strip, each column talking about the different Christmas movies, and every pill was a couple in love. And every half shaded black showed them investing in, or rather, here they were not making investments, they were being pressured by holiday and romance.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I went through the website and I went through the project before, but I didn't know you had like clickable stuff at top where you can see the data. Like, for example, I think here we click somewhere and then we show the data.
So yeah,
Like that. Yeah. Yeah. So that's very interesting. Nice. So, what are some of the challenges that you face in your work?
I'm going to stop sharing so we can continue to talk. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
the
So, what
challenge
was
is, I think with a project like this, where you're playing with numbers, words, and trying to make a product, you feel like you're in your head a lot. I had a small class of 5 people and the professor to discuss work with, and most often they wouldn't understand where I'm coming from, but it would sound incredibly smart in my head. So, but then, I think the challenge was to keep trusting that I will end up a place where this would make sense to everyone, when it didn't in the middle. Because I would go up and say things like, I'm going to make stress medication, and people would be so like weirded out by the choice of medium, and things like that. So I think overall, I still remember the day I presented. I also drew a little Christmas tree, put gifts for everyone in class. So I made it a whole experience, because I really wanted people to experience the data and not think critically about it too much, right? The goal was to show them stuff and then make them feel like I'm stressed by the holidays, or I'm feeling extremely in love around the holidays, more than focus on the numbers and the words itself. So I think that was overall successful. But yeah, like I said, the hardest part of this project was keeping at it when you are the only one that's seeing this go somewhere.
so you were talking about how you get onto one idea and you talk about repeat stuff around that one idea. So how did that go for like this project? Like you were talking about like Christmas and Christmas movies and things like that. Was that like a big part of you going to be picking like this direction for your entire project?
Yeah, I think the most important was to have picked a topic that you're very familiar with and you have great attachment to with this project, because you needed to really diversify the possibilities. Like that sketch set, like the sketches I made about 100 of them for positive and negative
Right.
scenarios in Christmas, and you should have seen that many Christmas movies and consumed so much information for it to come when you need it. So I think that was the most important. So I did do the right thing by picking something that I was very familiar with, because a lot of it became intuitive after.
Interesting. So I see like data visualization is like a huge part of your projects because I've seen your thesis as well. Can you talk a little about that? Like what attracts you towards data?
So I think what I find most exciting about visual experience more than graphic design is the act of making something more real and experienceable for people, and through that process, giving them emotional experiences and then having them engage with it in a more specific manner. So I think data by itself is a very mundane, like it's information that is available to everyone, but to get them to engage is a very exciting process, where you know that it's just unidimensional numbers and words, and the act of making it accessible to them through a product or an experience, is more gratifying than say everything else. So I always enjoy the process of conversion of the mundane to something exciting, and I think that's what draws me the most to data viz. And for someone who also enjoys product design, it's really hard to stop with the visualization. So I take it the next step and probably give people a more multi-sensory experience of the visualization itself.
Right. No, so I see like the data visualization and a product part of it's a part of like most of the projects that you get at SCAD or like most of the work I've seen even from the startup to like the pieces and things like that. Yeah, yeah. So I see where you have that, like you have like the broader data visualization of the part of the
Yeah.
project. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you manage and like stay organized and working on like multiple projects? How
I think from as a student who just graduated, a lot of what I'll say is probably notes to myself as well, because a lot of these things I have not achieved for myself, but I wish more of us could.
yeah,
So I think one thing that really helps, and something that I'm a big proponent of, is lists of all kinds, lists in order of priority, lists in order of, sometimes you also do it based on what you feel like doing, because sometimes when you pick an activity that you're not really in the mood to do right now, you spend a lot more time than you would if you do it at a time that you could probably get it done much faster. So I usually do lists by what really needs to be done, lists by what I feel like doing, and lists by probably what resources I have access to. Because sometimes when I'm in college, I can't probably do some printing. So I always keep that for later. So I do all of that. And lists have been something that I really swear by in terms of just getting your head and your work in the right place. But I also think one other thing that helps is doing work passively, in the sense always having something to think about when you're on a bus, when you're walking back home from school, or walking between like work and school, where you're constantly thinking of ideas and ways that you can make work better, because that way you feel like you're not really working, but you're doing something else and passively thinking about work. And I think I've had most of my better ideas when I'm not consciously thinking about it. So I think these two are things that I really swear by when it comes to just organizing work and making best use of time.
I completely agree with you on the second one. Like most of the best ideas that I have are when I'm not at my desk, when I'm out, like or
Yeah.
when I'm doing something else, and then I just have like wake up at some point,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, this is it. Yeah. So I agree with that. Like that's very great thing. Okay, so can you walk us through your typical design process, right? From like your concept to final product? Like how do you approach this one?
Sure. I think speaking about this, a lot of designers generally say it's never a linear process and then you sort of go back and forth. But I think quite differently about it from personal experience, because for me, the linear process works best. Because sometimes I feel like that also makes me identify lesser as a designer or an artist, because I'm not a very reckless or, I'm not someone that can be free spirited about thinking. So I really need to do it one after the other. So what I do usually is read the brief a few times and then go to keywords that I remember from it, and then forget the brief and just think about the keywords. Because the more I keep reading the brief, that I feel like the more common or direct my response will be. So I sort of put the brief away and think about just the keywords that I remember from reading the brief a few times. And most times, if it's a topic that you're familiar with, inspiration comes from within, where I'm like, I've seen some other like movie or a song or some inspiration on the internet that sort of aligns with this, and that sets my thoughts off. But sometimes I need external help when it's about a topic or a theme that I'm not too familiar with, and at that point I generally go to like books or Google YouTube videos to do with that theme, and look at them and sort of become a consumer first, and when I have a
Right.
fair idea of the topic, then do the thinking. And invariably I do have a tendency to have one aha moment and get attached to that one idea. I'm not the kind that starts off with three and then does some work on all three. That's not my process personally. I generally get attached to that one idea and try to make it work. So I think that helps me, because I am not very good with multitasking. So I would like to focus on one thing. So I always get attached to one idea and then go forward. But as someone who always makes graphic products, I think that's where I split my work into two, where on one side I'm thinking about the visual aspects, the content and all of that, but mostly I also have to do some material tests, sourcing, and then because you can't decide the previous evening that you want 5 boards from Amazon, they're not going to deliver. So I'm always needing to think about both, because the idea and the product are sort of parallelly developing, and I'm hoping that at the end of the process I have the content ready, but I also have the material and the other stuff I need to make them work eventually. So that's my process, if yeah, I mean that's how I'm able to explain my process, I guess.
No, I understand because every designer, like slowly, I've spoken to 3, 4 designers so far, and I've worked with a few people here as well, and it's nice to see how everyone has a different thought. Like
Okay. Yeah.
no two designers have the same thoughts, which is
Yeah.
very interesting. And people function like you said, like you are one of those people who goes on to one idea, like build on that rather than come up with 3 different concepts. I guess I'm also in the same boat when it comes to that. So it's interesting to see how people actually go about these projects.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
actually very impressed by people who come up with like 4 or 5 options right until the end,
right, right.
because it almost feels like they're being 4 different people while working on all four. I don't think I will ever be able to be so many people through a design process, so I really need to get attached to like one for it to work.
So where does the product design part come in? Was this something you were doing back in India as well, or this is something from CAD?
I think it's probably, I'm just like post rationalizing here. I don't have like a valid explanation, but because I was in architecture, I was always working with multiple surfaces. So there were walls to play with, floor, furniture, objects. So when in graphic design, when it sort of becomes just digital or print, it feels a little restrictive for me because I don't have enough surfaces to play with, which is where my product like inkling comes from, where I want to have a product instead of of print or digital. Because if it's a product, you have the option to borrow from sounds, textures, and then you have the option of having multiple surfaces to play with. You have options of like engagements where you can put something that opens up, folds out, like something that you lift and then see something else. The option to have like revelation or engagement and play is a lot more when it comes to a product. And as an architect who's always looking to use all of my surfaces to my advantage to create spaces, I think that sort of transcended into my graphic design work as well, where I always need more than one surface to work with, which is why products feel like the natural response.
So, what are some of the most common misconceptions people have when you tell them you're a graphic designer? Because Simran and even Maha had some really interesting answers about this. So, I want to know what are some of the things that you know that you can bring up.
Sure. I think just like graphic designers are more misconceived by the world than other designers, because I think as other designers you're familiar with what kind of work graphic designers do, but for like a common person who is unfortunately our client, the only thing we do is like make things look good, right? Like, I mean, I wish it was that straightforward. Unfortunately it's not, and you don't always get the opportunity to explain that to everyone that you ever meet. But I think making them look good, here the good I want to define as, it can be something, it can be making it easy, where if you think it's very complicated information, making it more accessible could be a graphic designer's job. So if something is really boring, making it exciting could be a graphic designer's job. If something is probably just text based, like giving visuals to it and making it approachable for someone who doesn't probably understand the language, both like as linguistically and the contents of it. If they don't understand it, if you could give it to them visually. So all of these could be a job of a graphic designer. And if that's what people are calling good, I think I'm going to settle with making things look good is a graphic designer's job. But I think one misconception probably is that people always have certain examples that they keep saying. So when you say I'm a graphic designer, they say things like, "Oh, you make logos, you make posters." Yes, we do that, but I think the "and more" is the part that most graphic designers are probably offended by, where we want an opportunity to be able to say that's not all we do. We do so much more. I think that's the biggest misconception, and I'm sure on some level, graphic designers you've spoken to in the past have brought this up as well. It's not uncommon knowledge.
So, what are some of the biggest challenges facing the graphic design today, like with AI and so many things on the horizon, where people think they can just go into AI and type something and get something like that? Also a part of it, but like, what do you think are like some of the challenges?
So I think I am one of those. I've understood over time that I'm one of those people that's. I'm really excited by the possibilities that are coming with AI, but I'm also not threatened. I mean, at the risk of sounding overconfident here, I think as a designer with the knowledge itself, I am not able to make the right prompts yet. In the sense, I know that if I have to describe a logo, I can do a far better job than someone who does not have a graphic design background, right? I should be able to go on the platform and say minimal words like minimal, like probably give hexacodes of color. I have all of this knowledge at my disposal, and I know I can do a good job of prompting a machine to give me something. But even I am not satisfied with the kind of things that I'm making on AI. So I think on some level, to prompt a machine and get something out of it can definitely be very easy. It can be maybe cost effective because of how easy it can be, but I don't think it can ever be as appropriate to a brief as a human can be, right? Like there's only so much you can give as information and expect from a machine. And humans can do things subconsciously that we are not really prompted to do. Like when I clean up a logo and there's one tiny like extra bit that I go and clean up, I'm not doing it because I'm prompted to do it. It's because my body's reacting to it and I want to do it. And I don't think a machine will ever be able to do that kind of like painstaking graphic work. So I don't think it's here to like displace us or cause us a lack of work. But I also think it's here to help us do better work, right? In the sense of being able to do some tasks that we spend hours on in a few minutes. I think in that sense, it is definitely here to help work be better. So I'm looking forward for technology to support us, not really displace us at the end of it.
So how are you using, like if you are using any of the AI technologies in your project? Like are you brainstorm with it, like you come up with two sketches into it and then edit it iterate versions, or how do you use it?
So I think I do use it more for the brainstorming than the generative AI aspect where I'm generating visuals from it. But the brainstorming angle of it, it just feels like a person sometimes, right? Like I often notice this where if I have access to someone, let's say because you brought up Simran, Simran is a classmate that Abhay and I have like had in SCAD. So she's also a really good friend to both of us. So Simran and I, if we have each other around, right? So we are always talking about how better we can do our respective projects. And if she sees something that I could use, I see something that she could use, we're always exchanging. And that's the same with a lot of my other classmates as well. But sometimes when you don't have access to these people, like I am thinking at 4 a.m. in the morning, I don't have another person to speak to, ChatGPT or like Gemini become that person where at one point I get the conversation between us gets so intense that I'm like, bro, I didn't mean that. And then I realize this person's not real. Like, so it's sort of like that Simran Tayyab, that classmate that I probably don't have at 4 a.m. in the morning. But it's never, I don't miss it when it's not there, like per se. But it's nice to have a springboard for ideas, I guess. And I also do something where I say, so I've thought of A, B, C, D, E. Am I missing anything? So, and ChatGPT does a really good job of telling you if you've missed something. So yeah, I think in that sense, it's a great brainstorming like tool.
So I was saying, I don't know if you've used like the latest Google voice model, but I'm using it right now in the same way that you were describing about. So it has a voice model, and I don't even type stuff in. So I have a stand over here for my phone. Just put it down there, get into the voice model, and then it's just like you said, it's like talking to a person feedback or like finding out if I missed some answers or things like that. And it's actually very interesting to see how people do it.
Oh, I've never used it. Maybe I should. But also,
Yeah.
I probably haven't done a new project in the last 20, 30 days. So I'll probably go to that because I'm just out of school and trying to find work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you also talk a little about like feedback from like your co-graphic design and stuff like that. So how do you handle feedback, and how do you incorporate? How do you go about feedback? Because like a lot of designers are not open to feedback and they take it personally. How do you go about it?
Maybe like just starting with taking it personally. I think I have been in creative work for about 9 years, and over time you sort of stop taking it personally because it just becomes first nature for feedback to receive feedback because that's the only way you can do better work. like I don't think there's another tested way to better work than have someone tell you what's wrong with it. So, and over time it just becomes habitual and you sort of stop taking it personally. I will be lying if I said I have never taken feedback personally. Of course I have, because as designers we're putting all of us in, like all of ourselves into our work, because that's the only way you can show people what you're capable of and what you're thinking. So when someone challenges an aspect of it, you feel challenged as a person, so it's very natural for it to be like something that you take personally, but over time you will be able to not. So I think that's the only way to do it. And as far as feedback, I think one thing that I've really learned over time is that feedback is everybody's perception. People are going to offer different things and they're all doing it with the intention to help you do better. But it's up to you eventually to sit with that feedback and see what you agree with and don't. I don't think it's fair for us to expect to address everything that we're ever given. So I would probably my like way to go about it would be to see, do I agree with this? If yes, take it to the next step. And once you're there, think about how much time and resource you have, because I would think a complete project is still a better deliverable than something that you're not satisfied with. So always keep in mind that you don't have all the time in the world to account for all the feedback you have, and probably prioritize and then do the ones that are really important. If there's like something grossly wrong with your typography or grossly wrong with your color or something, I would change it. And like spelling errors, all of that I would change, because that's a no-go. It makes your like entire piece fall flat. But if it's something where you could just do a little better in composition or just things like that, I would probably say for the next project as a lesson from this one, and then focus on completing this project to satisfaction, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And last question would be like, do you have any questions? Do you have any advice to give like designers who are just starting on the graphic design and some common mistakes people make?
I think not just graphic design, but design in general. My only tested advice, like I'm saying this because I've done it and I know it works for me, and I don't see a reason why it can't work for everyone, is do everything you get a chance to do. Like I I think when I said architect, like I did my architecture in undergrad, um, I wanted to do design, but I wanted to also stay at home and like go to undergrad school closer to home. So I picked a program that I felt was the most conducive for my interests in my location. And then I did, once I got out of architecture school, I did all kinds of internships. I would go, like I was waiting tables at a co-ideation cafe. And then I would make all of the birthday invites, birthday surprises for everyone in my life. So there was nothing that I was saying no to. And invariably, I feel like all of that contributed to the designer I am and the designer I presented at SCAD when I was seeking admission. Once I went into SCAD also, because I went into a program that allowed for that kind of multidisciplinary exploration, I would do all kinds of things. Like I would build an app one day, the next day I would be working on like making a laser cut model for another class, and then I would do electives in printmaking and photography, and work at like the university's museum on the side, do be a research assistant. So there was just like literally nothing I was saying no to. And together I think all of them very holistically help you be better designers. So, and because just because you say yes to everything doesn't mean you should like be half invested in anything. So if you have the time only to do four things, do four things really well. And if you think you can't do more, I don't think we should be pressurizing ourselves to do more. So I think the two pointers would be to do everything you get an opportunity to do and give your best to everything you're doing. That's my website, but I'm going to just probably show you what it has. I think for me, the focus on the portfolio was to make it as diverse as possible, because I am not a very media limited person. I don't think I have a strong suit when it comes to medium, but I think my strong suit is the fact that I can do multiple, if that makes sense. So there's Dotbug, which is a mobile app, a digital product through which people could communicate through shared music. So it was an end-to-end UX research, UI development, and product prototyping project. Noft, Abhay already mentioned, it was a project that I made for SCAD Startup 2023. So it was a product design entrepreneurial sprint. So we made a card game, me and a team of 4 other designers from SCAD, made a product that was basically a card game that encouraged visual association and through gamified experience for people of all ages. And then M&M Mayhem was again an experience of a product, and I picked M&Ms and how they lose color in your mouth and converted it to an air hockey table where you could play with M&Ms as coins in a table that resembled the mouth, complete with tongue and teeth and all of that. So it was a board game design. Um, Nerding was, which started off as an illustrative typographic poster as part of a typographic class, again ended up being a product because of how visually recognizable everything was. It was just like, it was just too there for me to stop from making a jigsaw puzzle of the poster I had made, because that's the part of it that I really enjoy. Retreats of Theosophy is a publication design where a project where we designed understood typographic rules of setting publications, typesetting for print. And then a fun addition was to make a cover that sort of spoke to the idea of the contents of the book. So I did it based on a location in India, which doubled up both as Virgin Woods and a center for art. So the 2 volumes carried one narrative each. City Market Twister was a game of Twister reinterpreted to encapsulate time in 1954 City Market of Savannah. So the game sort of brought the experience of shopping at the city market on a twister mat. So it was more a game interpretation project. Suisism was a typographic expression piece where we had to pick a character or a personality and sort of emulate their values in type, which was intentionally experimental, where we sort of handmade most of it and used photography and photo manipulation to create type that could carry the message of the personality itself. I picked Dr. Seuss, the children's writer. So a lot of mine was just fun exploration of candy and material of all kinds to create words that relate to his personality. So I think through the portfolio, I want to send across the message of design thinking and research and the ability to create products which are holistic and multisensory more than show my strength in one particular medium, if that made sense. There are also some just explorations in photography, darkroom printing, which I sort of got hooked to last year, printmaking, and other things that I believe contribute to me being a better designer than I could be, but it's just there. So people who are probably interested to know where else I go, they could go to those. And then I also have links leading to my resume, a small about section that probably gives people an idea of what I will do if we ever collaborate or connect over work.
So you heard her, if you want to connect or collaborate with Sunanda, look into her portfolio down in the description, so you can also go directly, and I'm also going to give a link for LinkedIn so people can connect with you.
Sure.
That's pretty much it. Thank you for coming on. And I hope it's been fun for you. It's been a lot of fun for me going through all this project.
No, even I'm so glad that those brief conversations that we'll have just going from Adler back home or from home to Adler on the bus was able to actually become something, and we could talk about it in this setting. So I'm glad we were able to do this as well.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me. And,
thank you.
Yeah, good luck out there with the job.
Thank you. Good luck to you too.
Thank you.